The Nile has many voices. Some whisper through papyrus reeds in the moonlight. Others roar like the floodwaters that once fed the golden kingdoms of Africa. But the loudest voices are those of kings pharaohs, whose crowns gleamed under the desert sun, whose commands traveled farther than the eye could see, and whose power once shook the known world. Long before Columbus was even imagined in the womb of history, there were black pharaohs who ruled empires so vast and wealthy that their names were feared in the palaces of Assyria, whispered in the markets of Greece, and honored in the temples of Jerusalem. They rose from Nubia, the land the ancients called Taseti, land of the bow, where warriors were born with the sun in their skin and the river in their blood. Our story begins not in the familiar shadow of the Great Pyramids, but further south in the kingdom of Kush, where the 25th dynasty of Egypt was forged. They were known as the Kushite Pharaohs, the Black Pharaohs rulers who reclaimed Egypt's throne, united the two lands, and spread their influence far beyond the Nile Valley. It begins with Piye, around 747 BC. He was no mere warlord. Piye was a tactician, a devout servant of the god Amun, and a ruler with the vision to unite a fractured Egypt under Kushite rule. At the time, Lower Egypt was divided among petty kings and Libyan war chiefs, each clawing for power. Piye swept north like the Nile flood, his army disciplined, his cause wrapped in divine authority. City after city opened its gates. By the time his campaigns ended, the crown of Egypt sat once more on a Nubian head. His stela, carved with pride, still speaks across the centuries, declaring not just victory, but unity under the Black Pharaoh. From Piye came Shabaka. Around 716 BC, Shabaka took the throne and looked not just to rule, but to restore Egypt's soul. He revived the ancient traditions, repairing temples and re-establishing the worship of Amun as the empire's beating heart. His most famous gift to history is the Shabaka Stone, preserving the Memphite theology, a rare glimpse into Egypt's philosophical thought, etched in hieroglyphs so that neither fire nor time could erase it. Shabaka's reign stretched Egypt's prestige, forging alliances and sending wealth flowing through Nubian trade routes. But then came a storm from the east, the Assyrians. It was Taharqa, Shabaka's successor, who would face them. Taharqa, the warrior pharaoh, the man the Bible remembers in the Book of Kings, stood against the might of Assyria at the height of its power. In 701 BC, when King Hezekiah of Judah rebelled against Assyrian domination, it was Taharqa who marched his armies into the Levant to aid Jerusalem. The Assyrian king Sennacherib boasted of victory, but the biblical text tells another story, that the invaders withdrew, and Jerusalem was spared. Whether by divine plague or military pressure, Taharqa's intervention became a legend. His reign was not just war, it was monumental building, from temples in Karnak to vast projects in Nubia. Taharqa left behind a trail of sandstone giants, inscriptions, and pyramids that still pierce the desert sky. His influence reached into the Mediterranean, shaping trade in gold, ivory, and exotic goods. These Kushite pharaohs were more than kings. They were a bridge between Africa's deep interior and the wider ancient world. Shabitku, though less remembered, carried the same royal blood. His reign saw delicate diplomacy, navigating between Egyptian traditions and the growing threats from Asia. His efforts preserved the dynasty's strength during a volatile time, ensuring that Nubian culture remained rooted in Egypt's throne. Even as Assyrian power grew relentless, the Kushite dynasty resisted. But by 656 BC, the tide had turned, and they withdrew to their heartland in Nubia. There, far from the reach of foreign empires, the tradition of pharaonic rule continued for nearly 1,000 more years, a quiet endurance that many history books overlook. In Napata and later Meroe, the successors of these kings expanded their influence southward and eastward. The kingdom of Kush became a powerhouse of iron production, its forges glowing red under the night sky. Its queens, the Kandake, sometimes led armies themselves, defying Rome centuries later. But in the age before Columbus, It was their pharaohs who had already written the blueprint for global power. The reach of Kush was not limited to war and religion. Their trade networks touched the Red Sea, sending goods to Arabia and possibly beyond into the Indian Ocean trade. Greek historians spoke with awe of Nubia's wealth, its towering monuments, and the fierce skill of its archers. And in art, they left a stamp so distinct that even centuries of foreign domination could not erase the unmistakable features of African royalty carved in granite. But there are truths here that unsettle the comfortable myths of history. The first, that the Egypt we celebrate in museums around the world was, at one of its peaks, ruled entirely by kings from deep Africa, men with dark skin and Nubian heritage. The second, that their power reached into lands often imagined as untouched by Africa, shaping biblical events, Mediterranean trade, and the geopolitics of empires long before Europe's so-called Age of Discovery. The third, that their legacy was deliberately muted in many modern histories, not erased, but whispered in footnotes and specialist texts, far from the public's gaze. Today, the pyramids of Nubia still stand, slender and steep against the sands, each one marking a royal burial, a silent defiance against time. The tombs of Piye and Taharqa lie in the sacred city of Nuri, where archaeologists still work to uncover treasures the desert has hidden for millennia. Yet many remain sealed, their contents unknown, their stories untold. And then there is the mystery of African exploration. Ancient ships from the Nile sailed not just to the Levant, but into the open Red Sea. Did they reach India, the distant islands of the Indian Ocean? Could African mariners have touched shores far beyond the maps we have recovered? The records are silent, but the possibility lingers, a tantalizing reminder that history's edges are still in shadow. The story of the Black Pharaohs is not just African history, it is world history. It is the tale of kings who rose from the heart of the continent, mastered the politics of Egypt, resisted the superpowers of their day, and left monuments that even the desert could not swallow. Long before Columbus sought a western route to Asia, the Nile had already carried the ambitions of empires to the ends of the known world. Their legacy flows on like the river itself, bending, disappearing, and re-emerging, with each generation willing to look beyond the narrow horizons we have inherited. And so the question remains, how many more kings lie forgotten beneath the sands? How many more monuments sleep beneath the waters of the Nile or the waves of distant seas? And when we uncover them, will we finally rewrite the map of our past? This is just one story among many the world has forgotten. If you seek the rest, the hidden kingdoms, the erased names, the lost treasures, stay with us here on History Off the Map. The journey is only beginning.